back, ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl, and once again, I got my friend Dominick from Fantasy Hot Read. Dominick, how you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. You know, the Saints had a great game over the weekend against the Bears. The Eagles look like crap against the Cowboys, but at least the Saints won.
I mean, you win some, you lose some. Saints look really good. I'm really loving how they've been playing lately. So, yeah, it was a good week, and I won in fantasy. So, yeah, it was a really good week for me. So let's get started with our matchups. Our first matchup is going to be the Thursday night game, which is the 1-6 Washington Redskins headed to Minnesota to face the 5-2 Vikings. Dominick, who you got?
Well, the Vikings are one of the biggest favorites this week. They're 15.5-point favorites right now. The only thing you have to be worried about here is that this is primetime Kirk Cousins, so we'll have to see what happens there. It's kind of like as bad as primetime Andy Dalton, but not quite as bad. But he's been just killing it lately in the recent weeks. I think he's going to roll over the Washington Redskins again here. And with this defense just smothering teams right now, I know they gave up 30 points to basically Marvin Jones last week, but other than him, they only gave up 93 yards receiving, won those 4 touchdowns. So I just think here this is going to be a big home game win for the Vikings.
Washington, as I've repeatedly said, and I'll probably continue to say throughout this season, is a terrible, terrible team from top to bottom. Don't expect a lot out of them. Don't expect them to get better anytime soon. Their one win so far this season comes from the winless, terrible Dolphins. So don't expect them to do any better. They may get a couple more wins. I don't know when. It definitely won't be this Vikings game. Vikings have looked superb this season so far. Kirk Cousins has some times when he needs to get it together. But in the last 3 weeks, he's looked really, really good. He's finally clicking with Thielen and with Diggs, thank goodness. And Cook, of course, is tearing it up on the field. They have one of the top 10 defenses in the league. So definitely got to roll with the Vikings, not just because they're home. They're just facing a terrible team in the Redskins, and this should be a handy win for them. Next up, we got the 5-2 Seattle Seahawks headed to Atlanta to face the 1-6 Falcons. Dominick, who you got?
I know Seattle played a tough game last week against the Ravens and lost. I know we both thought the Seattle would pull it out, but they didn't. This week we have to see who's going to be quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. It's either going to be Matt Ryan or Matt Schaub. We're not sure yet. Either way, I don't think they have a chance to win. I do think Seattle's going to come back here. Russell Wilson is just playing outstanding this year. He even played good last week, even though they lost. Tyler Lockett had a touchdown last week, so Chris Carson's playing good. So I do think that Seattle's going to be able to go down to Atlanta and beat them.
Like you said, Seattle had a surprising loss last week, but Ravens defense really stepped up in that game. So I kind of thought it would be a battle. I just didn't expect the Seahawks to come out on the losing end of that. I know this week they are going to be fired up to make up for that loss. Chris Carson's going to look good in that backfield. I expect good things out of Tyler Lockett. I need DK Metcalf to get his hands together. Shouldn't have dropped that one pass. I think he will try and make up for that this week. Expect a couple of catches from him out of this game. Russell Wilson is always going to be Russell Wilson. He should always be in the MVP discussion, in particular what he's done in the early part of this season. Atlanta, again, like you said, we don't know who's going to be starting for them at quarterback. They just traded Mohamed Sanu. I guess they're expecting for Calvin Ridley to start stepping up more. Julio Jones has kind of disappeared this season, but again, part of that has to do with Matt Ryan. So hopefully maybe they can click. If Schaub has to be the one to start, then maybe they can click. That defense is just trash, or at least they have been up to now. I'm hoping they can make some changes. Quinn is in a dangerous situation of not being able to be back next season. So this team has got to get their ish together, but I cannot give them this game. I definitely think Seahawks will make up for last week's loss and get the win here in Atlanta. Next up, we got the 3-4 Eagles headed to Buffalo to face the 5-1 Bills. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, the Eagles, they're my team, but they let me down big time last week against Dallas. I thought they'd have a much better game. Obviously, Carson Wentz had the fumble. Goddard had the fumble. I do think that their offense is still better than the Bills' offense. The pass defense is obviously terrible. The Bills don't really have a whole good pass offense either. They're going to try and run the ball quite a bit with Josh Allen. We've seen that the Eagles can stop the run. I'm going to have to stick with them. I don't know why, but I'm going to have to take the Eagles here to win probably a very close game.
Eagles looked so bad in that game against the Cowboys. My goodness, that was not the outcome that I predicted. That's not the outcome I expected. I just don't know exactly what happened. I do expect them to really get it together this week. I don't expect a repeat of what happened last week against the Cowboys to happen again. I expect them really to make strides this week. Need Alshon Jeffrey to hang on to the ball this week, hopefully. That'll help them out tremendously. Carson Wentz need to push it down the field more, get it out of your hands and faster than 5 to 10 seconds. You got about 3 seconds. That 3-step drop, you need to really stick with that. Their defense hasn't looked as good as it did in the earlier part of the season, but I'm hoping that they'll really be able to turn that around in this game. That being said, Buffalo's defense is looking very stout and really good so far this season. They're the only team that really took it to the Patriots and the only team that really posed a challenge. And so I really feel like this Eagles-Bills game is going to be more of a defensive battle than it will be an offensive battle, just because of the way these two quarterbacks have played up till now. So if I had to really pick one in a real defensive struggle, I got to pick the Bills at home. I've just been so thoroughly impressed by this defense, which I happen to have, and has done very well for me each week. So yeah, I'm going to take the Bills here. One, because they're at home, and two, if it gets down to a defensive battle, I just feel like the Bills are going to win out at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have the Bills defense as well. We'll have to see what happens. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than some people may think, especially with Philadelphia. Everybody thinks their offense is so great. We do have to see what happens over the week, though, with trades, because it is out there that Philadelphia is very much in on Chris Harris Jr.
That would be a good pickup for them if they and that would really help that secondary. If that happens, everything that I just said could change. But right now, I'm still going to go with the Bills just because they have a better defense all the way around. Next up, we got the 2-5 Chargers headed to Chicago to face the 3-3 Bears. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, the Chargers kind of had that game stolen away from them last week. I mean, it wasn't stolen in the fact that they got blown calls or anything. It was just, Melvin Gordon just couldn't get in from the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line. He fumbled a couple times and just didn't get in. It was just a terrible at the end of the game. They shouldn't even have been in the position to get that, but there were some bad calls on Tennessee's side of the field. But Ryan Tannehill looked good last week, obviously, as well, so that kind of helped. The Bears looked like hot garbage last week, even though they put up 18 points. A lot of it was just in garbage time against the Saints when the Saints were just playing, prevent defense. I don't believe in the Bears at all. I still have a little bit of faith in the Chargers. Chargers are 4.5-point underdogs here. I do actually like the Chargers in this spot, and I do think they will go to Chicago and should be able to pull this one out against Chicago. Just Chicago has a great defense, but they have absolutely no offense, and Trubisky is just terrible, and it's time for people to start realizing that they may think he was raw and had potential coming out, but the potential is not coming to fruition.
1000% agree with you on that assessment. The Chargers are going to Charger. Every year, this is not new for them. They lose some close battles on some fluky plays that just make absolutely no sense. Last year, it was, going through a boatload of kickers because they can never get their kicking game right. This last fluky thing with, Melvin Gordon not being able to push it in, or Austin Eckler. They switched at one point to try to get Eckler to run it in. Got that call back. They put in Gordon twice. Those didn't go through. Then he fumbled on the last one. I mean, that's like I said, Chargers are going to charge it. They have a tendency to lose the close battles on some super fluky, ridiculous thing. That being said, they're facing the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Chicago has a top 10 defense as well. I want to say they're even in the top 5, but the problem with them is they spend way too much time on the field because that offense is terrible. And it all falls on Mitchell Trubisky. It has nothing he has a good receiver in Allen Robinson, and he has a pretty good running back in Tariq Cohen, but Trubisky is not the future of that franchise, unfortunately. And at some point, somebody's going to have that realization. Again, like you said, he had a lot of raw potential coming out. He's not going to be what they thought he was going to be. He's not the future of this franchise. And at some point, they will have to move on. Right now, they've got to live with it or switch to a backup, which I don't think they're going to do. But this offense isn't going to be able to keep up with whatever the Chargers do, because Chargers know how to score, and Chargers have a great offense. They have a pretty decent defense, but that offense is one of the better offenses, definitely one of the better ones in the AFC West in particular, if there wasn't for the Chiefs. But yeah, I definitely got to give this one to the Chargers as well, simply because they just have a much better offense, and I think that that defense will be able to keep Trubisky from scoring. Next up, we got the 2-5 New York Giants headed to Detroit to face the 2-3-1 Lions. Dominic, who you got?
Saquon Barkley coming back obviously had a big effect on the Giants last week. He did get a touchdown for him, but he couldn't get him the win at home. Sterling Shepard's probably going to be out again. Golden Tate, I really like the way he's playing. Evan Ingram, everybody loved him last week, and he didn't do anything for you. He only got you 1 point. Daniel Jones just, looks like he had one good game, and now he's fallen back. I do like Detroit in this game. I think Stafford's doing a lot better this year. Obviously, Marvin Jones is not going to do again what he did last week, but they still have Kenny Golladay there. It's going to be very tough with Kerryon Johnson going on IR today. He was my favorite running back, so it's unfortunate to see that happen, but I do think that Stafford's going to have enough against this terrible Giants defense. They should be able to light this team up through the air, and I think they're going to put up a lot of yards against this team and through the air, and they should win this game.
Detroit is always in games because Matthew Stafford has a really good arm. It's just that he has a tendency to sometimes to overthrow and hit the defender instead of his receiver. It happens repeatedly. That's just a thing with him. But when he's on it, he is on it. And he's got some really good receivers in Marvin Jones, who blew up finally after I dropped him, of course. Last week, he had a phenomenal game, and that was great for whoever got him. And when Marvin Jones doesn't have a game like that, again, like you said, he has Kenny Golladay on the other side. I'm sad to see Kerryon Johnson go out, but I know that they'll be able to continue on with that passing game because that's more of what they tend to lean on anyway. So it won't be that massive of an issue for them. Their defense is somewhere in the middle of the pack. They're pretty good. That's why they've been able to be kind of more competitive in that NFC North division. The Giants are another one of those terrible teams. Danny Dimes is not always throwing up dimes. Part of that is, with Sterling Shepard out, he's had to, rely on receivers that aren't up to the same caliber. Not that I'm saying that Golden Tate isn't a great receiver. I just don't feel like he's on par with what I've seen out of Sterling Shepard when he's fully healthy. But we'll see what they can do. I know going forward, they'll be doing a lot better simply because they do have Saquon back. They're just not going to get this one. Detroit plays much better when they're at home. I feel like they'll be able to really get this win because they're going to be able to stop, Daniel Jones with that defense. And then, like I said, Matt Stafford is got a gun for an arm. I definitely feel like he's going to throw up at least a good 2-3 touchdowns in this game and get that win for them. Next up, we got the 2-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed down to Tennessee to face the 3-4 Titans. Dominic, who you got?
Well, like I said last week with the Titans, they tend to have an up game and a good bad game, back and forth like a roller coaster. Last week was supposed to be their up game, and I still picked against them, so I'm going to have to pick against them again this week because this should be their down game even though they're at home. Tampa Bay's coming off the bye. I really like their offensive weapons, especially when it comes to the receiving core there. Obviously, they don't really have any running backs, and as good as O.J. Howard is, he only has 18 targets this entire year. But with, Chris Godwin as well as Mike Evans both being there and both being outstanding top 12 wide receivers in this league. And, Winston obviously had a bad game last week, and the defense in Tennessee is pretty decent, but their offensive line is terrible, and the run defense for Tampa Bay is actually very good. So I don't think that Derrick Henry's going to be able to get much going. I think that's going to lead to a lot of more pass attempts to A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, and that can never end good, especially when you're throwing to Corey Davis. So I'm going to have to take Tampa Bay here coming off the bye. I think they're going to win this game in Tennessee.
This is a battle of the 2015 1 and 2 draft picks in Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. And I honestly feel like neither of them have a future with the current team that they are with. I just feel like neither is the future of these franchises. How long they'll stick around with those teams, I don't have a clue, but I can tell you that I don't see anything good in the future for either one of them. They're just so-so quarterbacks. Both of them have a tendency to have, like you said, one really great game, and then the next game you're like, what the hell, dude? Like, who are you throwing to? And so, yeah, the Titans, when Corey Davis is like one of your top receivers, you're not going to have a great day. I like to see Derrick Henry in that backfield. He's quite impressive. That's a big dude. And it's hard. He's hard to bring down. But that offense can't rely strictly on Derrick Henry getting that ball down the field. In particular, like you said, with that offensive line, with Conklin out, it's made a big difference for them on how bad that line has looked. And it's really been costing Mariota Mariota more than anyone, as well as Derrick Henry, who hasn't been able to really get those really great runs that we were used to seeing out of him last season. Maybe he'll break one off this game. We'll see. Tampa, meanwhile, like you said, their running game is only so-so. Is it Rojo? Is it Peyton Barber? Sometimes, Peyton takes the lead. Sometimes it's Rojo. Neither one is that great of a running back, but they have, like you said, at receivers, we got Godwin and we got Mike Evans, one of the top receivers in the league. Jameis, when he's on, is on. When he's off, he's way off. This is going to be I don't even want to say high scoring. It'll be a low scoring shootout, and whoever at the end of the day can throw the fewest interceptions, because I'm expecting interceptions out of both of them, is going to be the one that wins the day. I want to take the Titans here at home, but I really feel like Jameis may win the day in this battle, so I'm going to take the Bucs here. I just feel like that at the end of the day, Jameis has better receivers, and so I expect a little bit more out of him, so I feel like the Bucs will definitely get this one. Next up, we got the 2-5 Denver Broncos headed to Indianapolis to face the 4-2 Colts. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this was actually pretty easy for me. I don't know what the Broncos did last week. They started out good with the touchdown with Royce Freeman, and then they just stopped from there. It's like they felt bad for the Chiefs after Mahomes went out. So I'm gonna have the Colts look good last week coming off the bye. I think I still like them in the AFC South. I've said from the get-go, even without Andrew Luck there, I think they're going to win the division, and I think this is going to be a big step towards doing that. They're going to have to keep winning if they're going to stay ahead of Houston and the other teams here. So I'm going to have to take the Colts in this game.
Denver apparently is now on another one of those teams. It's on a fire sale. I guess they've decided that they're going to play for next season. Whatever. They just traded away Emmanuel Sanders, who was their top receiver, which makes no sense to me unless you're planning on just saying, screw it for this season and let's build for next season. Fine, whatever. There's rumor, like you said, that they are trying to trade Chris Harris as well. We'll see whether or not that happens. That being said, with Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback, with Emmanuel Sanders gone, I don't expect a lot out of the Broncos, and I just feel like they are not expecting a lot out of themselves either. I love Philip Lindsay. I love when he has a big game. Just hasn't been a lot of them this season, and again, part of that is because the offense is just not that good, and their defense hasn't lived up to the hype or the expectations of them. And if Chris Harris leaves, that's going to be a hole in that secondary, so it'll be even more of a disappointment to see what happens. And they're headed to Indianapolis, and Colts have played damn good. They have been surprisingly good on how well they've played. They've played up to a level no one expected when Andrew Luck retired all of a sudden. But Jacoby Brissett, as I kept trying to tell people, was a much better quarterback than many people anticipated. On top of that, that defense is really, really good. I don't know, did people forget who won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year? That Leonard still plays on that defense? They're a damn good defense, on top of the fact that they have a good offense. So I expect good things out of the Colts moving forward. Will they win their division? It's a possibility. It is definitely between them and the Texans of any teams. And I really feel like, Jacoby Brissett stays healthy and they, stick with the formula that they've been doing up till now, they definitely will be in contention. Don't expect a lot out of the Broncos. Do not think they will get the win here. Definitely giving this one to the Colts because they're at home and because they're just an all-around better team.
Yeah, if the Broncos, I know they're your team, but if they want a fire sale, the first thing they ought to fire is John Elway. Did you realize he makes $12 million a year?
To basically blow up the team every year. I just don't understand it, why they keep sticking with him as GM. They want to leave him as EVP, that's fine, but please take him off as general manager because he is not helping that team in any draft whatsoever.
Yeah, he needs somebody else to run the personnel. If they want to make him a figurehead because he's a legend there, that's fine, but he needs to let somebody else.
Absolutely 100% agree with you. Next up, we got the winless 0-7 Cincinnati Bengals headed to London to face the 4-3 Los Angeles Rams. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this is another one of those large spreads, which I don't know why it's so large. It is technically, it's a neutral site game, but this is a 12-point spread here. I think that's maybe a little too high, but I do still think the Rams are going to pull this one out. Cincinnati looked like trash last week. They were holding it down pretty good, and then they gave up 20 points in the last 5 minutes. Joe Mixon he may still be a good running back, but he's definitely leveled down this year. He hasn't stayed what we thought he would be. Obviously, the offensive line there is terrible to begin with, but he's also taken a step back. It's not just because of this offensive offensive line. Andy Dalton is a solid quarterback, but he's not a good quarterback, and he can't do anything here. A.J. Green's going to be out again. We'll have to see what happens with Tyler Boyd and Auden Tate if they're able to do anything, but this is obviously going to be the Rams show. They were the greatest show on turf last week against Atlanta. They crushed them. Jalen Ramsey seems to have been adding a new life to that defense. The offense was good with all three of the receivers. Todd Gurley didn't really do a whole lot last week, but right now, luckily, they don't need him to. Jared Goff had a bounce-back game, and I think it's going to continue this week in London.
The Bengals, the wheels have fallen off there. I mean, my goodness. It's not just a terrible defense. They got a terrible offensive line. The receiving core, I mean, like you said, AJ Green is still out. Tate has, come through when he can. Tyler Boyd is still, trying to do what he can. Some of this problems are with Andy Dalton. Some of it is just purely that line is trash and he's not able to, get the ball anywhere. Joe Mixon, I expected more out of him this season. I'm not seeing it. I didn't expect the Bengals to be this bad at this point, but my goodness, they are just terrible all the way around. I'm hoping they get a win. Do not feel like it'll be this week facing the Rams. Now, let's get it straight. Are Rams going to have a repeat of last week? This is another winless team, whereas, Atlanta had at least won one. I don't think that they'll have those same type of numbers in this situation, but again, they're facing another terrible defense, so it's quite possible. Jared Goff went off last week. He had a great game. Todd Gurley had a touchdown. The receivers, everybody got to touch the ball last week. It was a really, really outstanding performance. Like you said, the defense seemed to get new life with the addition of Jalen Ramsey, which is they weren't a terrible defense to begin with, but to see that whole next level out of them was just so good to see. Kind of expect that defense to really go after Andy Dalton in this game. So don't expect it to be a close matchup. I do not expect the same game that they had last week. So we'll see on that, but definitely going to take the Rams in this one. I just feel like the Bengals they're not a good team on any front. They're just not a good team. They're at least not the Dolphins, but they aren't a good team. Next up, we got the 3-1 Arizona Cardinals headed to New Orleans to face the 6-1 Saints. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, I thought the Saints would have a tougher matchup last week. Obviously, I didn't pick them to win, although I did bet on them to win, so I was happy there. But I was hoping they win, and I was happy to see how they played outdoors, because a lot of times they don't play nearly as well outdoors or away from the dome as they do in the dome, and they looked outstanding last week. Their defense looks out of this world. That could have just been because of Chicago. They are going to have a tougher time, this defense, this week. Even if David Johnson isn't there, Chase Edmonds looked great last week. Kyler Murray didn't look too good last week, neither did Larry Fitzgerald, but their offense is still better than Chicago. It is going to be, I think, a tougher game, obviously, than they had against Chicago last week, but I do think the Saints are going to win this one in possibly Teddy Bridgewater's last game as starter, or it could be Drew Brees coming back as a starter.
Arizona, I want to see more out of Kyler Murray, and I think that him and Larry Fitzgerald, once they really get clicking, which they still have the rest of the season to go, once they really get clicking, they're going to be a formidable pair. Even if this is Fitzgerald's last season, he could really help develop the kid, and I really see a good future for him. Like you said, if David Johnson is not fully healthy, Chase Edmonds is there, who's been very impressive. I happen to pick him up off of waivers at the recommendation of friends, so I really feel like they will be solid. I just don't feel like this is the game that they're going to really impress people with, because the Saints have been on a freaking roll, even with Drew Brees out. Even when we didn't have Alvin Kamara, this team still was able to roll to a win. That really says something. When Latavius Murray even stepped up, when Alvin Kamara's down, this team is really, really rolling. They're like, hey, we lose a piece, we just move on. Somebody else will step up. If Michael Thomas has a bad game, Ted Ginn will step up. This is an incredible team. Teddy Bridgewater, whether or not he starts, which I really feel like they're going to do, play the hot hand is the rule. If right now Teddy is playing this well, stick with the hot hand. Let Drew Brees get up to full health before you bring him back, because the team isn't losing. And if Teddy's playing this well, let him keep playing. That defense has looked super incredible this year. I'm very impressed by them. Really love when they're playing at home. They just play super different there in that stadium. So Arizona is going to have a good game, but they're not going to get the win. Definitely giving this one to the Saints. Next up, we got the 1-5 New York Jets headed down to Jacksonville to face the 3-4 Jaguars. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, the Jets got embarrassed last night, and obviously, apparently, Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. That apparently his whole team was upset that was put on TV, but he shouldn't have said it. He knew he was mic'd up, But what are you gonna do? But Jaguars looked good at the end of the game last week. Leonard Fournette just looks like he's a top 5 running back right now. As much as I don't really like him, I don't really like LSU running backs, but he is proving me wrong this year, and that's good to see. I have family down in Jacksonville; they love the Jaguars, and I'm gonna have to take them this week. I do think it's gonna be a much closer game, and I do think the Jets are gonna put up a fight, and it's going to be close, but I do think Jacksonville's going to find a way to pull it out, just using the riding, Leonard Fournette.
So here's the thing. When Jets had that impressive win 2 weeks ago, everyone was like, wow, that's all they were missing was Sam Darnold. And now that he's back and you really saw Robbie Anderson come to life and you really saw Lev Bell be able to do something, you're like, you know what? They're going to be fine. They're going to be able to turn this thing around. They'll be great. And then last night came. My goodness, what a difference the better competition makes. They looked horrible. In particular, Sam Darnold looked like pure D dumpster fire trash. I mean, not just the fact he said he's seeing ghosts, the interceptions, the passer rating. Darnold won't play like that again. I think that was probably the worst game of his career. I don't expect him to play that poorly again. That being said, though, they're facing the Jaguars, who have a stellar defense. He's not going to be able to keep up with that defense. He isn't going to keep in mind, he's not facing the Patriots defense, who is one of the top fantasy scorers in the league, who is one of the top defenses in the league, period, has one of the best pass rushing defenses in the league. This team, the Jets, are going to get wins, and they're going to be fine. It won't have another repeat of that, but they're not going to get this win against the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew, when he's on and playing well, this kid is a sight to see, and I really enjoy seeing him out there. He's got decent receivers. Leonard Fournette, when he's on, is one of the top running backs in the league. And that defense, even with the loss of Jalen Ramsey, still plays well. And when they're at home, they're a little bit tougher to beat. I definitely feel like the Jets aren't going to be able to come in and get the win. I'm definitely giving this one to the Jaguars. Next up, we got the 4-2 Carolina Panthers headed to San Francisco to face the undefeated 6-0 49ers. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very good game. I know Greg Olsen definitely has a career in broadcasting, as I heard him broadcast the game over the weekend. He actually did really good. I think on the field, though, this week, he's going to do good as well. Christian McCaffrey, I think right now is the best running back in the league. He had a week off to recuperate from anything that he was dealing with physically. I know the San Francisco 49ers want to run the ball as well. They're going to have to if they want to keep Christian McCaffrey off the field. They're coming off the bye week. There's 2 teams right now, obviously, that are undefeated. It's the 49ers and the Patriots. Only one of these teams I think is going to finish the weekend undefeated, and it's not going to be the 49ers. I do think Carolina is going to be able to go into San Francisco and beat the 49ers in this one.
Wow, that's a good pick there. Kyle Allen has looked really, really good, and that was not expected prior to him taking over the starting quarterback position. But what he's had, of course, is help from CMC. Run CMC, Christian McCaffrey is a beast. I've not seen anything like him in a long time. Definitely been impressed by him this season. One of the best running backs in the league right now. Expecting really good things out of him for the remainder of this season. Gotta put him right now. I hate to do it. Got to put him in MVP talks right now. I know it's hard for a running back to beat a quarterback out, but if he can keep up at the pace that he's been doing, he should have to be in the discussion later in the season. We'll see about that, but really expect good things out of the Panthers. That being said, 49ers just added a new receiver in Emmanuel Sanders, and that's been part of what's plagued them a little bit. Even though that they still been getting wins, is that they needed a good wide receiver one, and they've got that in Emmanuel Sanders. Really feel like that's going to help out their passing game tremendously. Jimmy G needed a one. He now has a stout one. Their running game has been fine. Their defense has looked good. Definitely. That's why they're still undefeated. So I expect a very close back and forth game. Will the 49ers be able to continue with the win streak facing that Panthers defense? Woo! This is going to be a tough one for me. You know what? I'm going to be like you. I'm going to take the Panthers in this one. I really feel like the 49ers are on a very hot streak, but I feel like if any team could do it right now, it definitely would be the Panthers, just because of the level that they've been playing at of recent. And like you said, they're coming in off of the bye. They're going to be well rested. CMC is going to be back up to full health. Kyle Allen's going to really, be back where he needs to be. Yeah, definitely going to give this one to the Panthers. Next up, we got the 2-4 Cleveland Browns. Oh, good Lord. Headed to New England to face the undefeated 7-0 Patriots. Dominic, who you got?
Yep, not gonna not gonna talk long on this one. Like I said, there's only gonna be one undefeated team after this weekend, and it's gonna be the Patriots. You're gonna start their defense. You're gonna start obviously Edelman. You can even probably start Sanu. Sony Michel looked good over yesterday. James White looked decent as well. Tom Brady, obviously they just have all the weapons right now. Plus, the Browns just look awful right now. So I'm gonna have to obviously take the Patriots in this one.
I'm gonna be like you. I'm not gonna talk long on this. Browns, listen. There were high expectations for the Browns prior to the start of the season. They have not lived up to any of those expectations. Baker, if anything, has regressed this particular season. Even the addition of OBJ hasn't, made them become a breakout team. I don't know what will. I'm hoping for good things for them in the future. The defense started off looking well, and I think really what's happened is that they're getting tired because they're out on the field so much because that offense is just not getting it done for them. They heading to New England. The Patriots are just they're a next level team when they're at home, and they are hard as hell to beat at home. And there's no way in holy hell Baker is going to be the one to bring down Tom Brady and that offense. In particular, have you seen that defense? That defense is like the number one defense in the league right now. Absolutely no way in holy hell Baker comes out of there without at least 2 picks in that game. They just added Mohamed Sanu as at receiver on top of Julian Edelman. Are you kidding me? It's like no matter who they lose at receiver, they managed to get a good receiver to replace him. I think this was a great addition for them. I think it's great for Sanu, to get out of Atlanta and to play for a contender finally. So definitely giving this to the Patriots. Don't even expect it to be a close and interesting game.
Yeah, Cleveland has to get an offensive line in the offseason. If they actually had an offensive line, they'd be a good team this year.
Agree with you 1,000%. Let's hope that the draft next year, they'll pick up some O-linemen since they address their defensive issues. I think the defense is fine, but they got to address that O-line. Next up, we got the 3-3 Oakland Raiders headed down to Houston to face the 4-3 Texans. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, both these teams are coming off losses. Obviously, the Raiders' loss was not nearly as lopsided as it turned out to be by the score, but they still lost in Lambeau. Houston lost to a good Indianapolis team, as we said last week. Deshaun Watson didn't play an outstanding game. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, but I do think that their team is just much better than Houston, as much as I love Darren Waller, and I think that Oakland's really going to rely on Josh Jacobs quite a bit. I do think that the Houston Texans defense, although not great, is still good enough against the run to stop Josh Jacobs a little bit, and I do think that they're going to get this victory over Oakland at home.
I like, again, it pains me to say nice things about the Raiders, but I like Derek Carr. Josh Jacobs was a surprise for me, but I love what I'm seeing out of him, and I hope to see more of that in the future. Defense for them has not been that great this season. They are headed down to Houston. Houston is salty about that loss because it now puts them in second place in the AFC South Division, which they didn't want to be in because they looked so dominant the week previous. I want to say that it will be in a competitive matchup. Hopefully, I'm hoping that that's what we're going to have here, but cannot give this one to the Raiders. I definitely have to take the Texans in this one because I really feel like Texans are going to definitely make up for the loss they had last week. Watson has looked so good this season. Minus last week, they've looked really good this season. Really expect good things out of them. I really still feel like it's going to come down to them and the Colts in that AFC South division. And so that being said, really feel like this is the Texans game that they're going to turn it around from last week, giving this one to the Texans, and really feel like it's not going to be that close of a game. Next up, we got the 6-1 Green Bay Packers headed to Kansas City to face the 5-2 Mahomeless Chiefs. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this would have been a great game to see Mahomes go against Rodgers. That would have been awesome, almost like a passing of the torch type thing, although Rodgers has a couple more years left. But obviously with Matt Moore here, Damian Williams just looks like garbage. LaShawn McCoy actually looks like he's having a resurgence. But Tyreek Hill can't do it all himself. We don't know if Sammy Watkins is going to play. And I know it's in Arrowhead, and that's probably the toughest stadium to play at in the league. But with Aaron Rodgers going in there, he looked hot last week. Obviously, MVS had 2 catches for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a 75-yard touchdown, a 58-yard touchdown. Looks like they're just just getting everything rolling. Aaron Rodgers had, 5 touchdowns plus or running touchdowns. So he had 6 touchdowns total, 429 yards, and that was spread out. He didn't have more than 6 targets to any one receiver. He's going to be able to spread it around again in this one. He's going to get Aaron Jones in there against this, Kansas City Chiefs defense who played over their head last week against Denver. So I think that Green Bay's going to go in there and win this one by at least a touchdown.
Kansas City Chiefs offense, we don't know what they can do with Matt Moore. We did get kind of a taste of it last week or whatever, but again, it was against the Broncos, who are not a good team on either side of the ball this year. I'm sorry to be the one to have to say that as a Broncos fan. I don't know what's going to happen in this game simply because I don't know exactly what to expect out of Matt Moore. I know that Chiefs do not have a good defense at all. They have one of the worst defenses in the league, and they're going to be facing the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, who has figured out, hey, you know what? Even with Devontae Adams out, I still got some pretty good. They're young, and they're still, some of them are a little raw or whatever, but at least with MVS, he's starting to get in sync with him, and I feel like this is going to be another really good, spectacular game for them. That defense, my goodness. What I expected out of the Chicago Bears this season is what I'm seeing out of the Packers defense this year, and I love it. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to be fine, in particular, they're in a terrible division, so it's going to be a fine. They'll still be fine until Mahomes comes back. If they go 2-2 or whatever during these 4 weeks that he's supposed to be out, they'll be fine. This will not be one of the games that they're going to get a win. I'm definitely giving this to the Packers, and I actually with the Packers defense, I do not expect it to be close. And last and certainly least, we got the winless 0-6 Miami Dolphins headed to Pittsburgh to face the 2-4 Steelers. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, the Steelers are 2-4, as you said. Dolphins are 0-6, yet the Steelers are still 15-point favorites in this game. That just shows you how bad the Dolphins are. I think last week they basically played their game last week, and they still couldn't win, so they realized they're not going to win at all this year. I don't expect this one to be close. I do think Pittsburgh's going to win this one. Coming off the bye weekend, playing at home, I think Juju Smith-Schuster should be an outstanding play this week, no matter who's the quarterback. James Conner is hopefully healthy, and he should be a great play as well, but I do think, Pittsburgh should be a wonderful play this week, and I think they're going to win easily.
I don't give a rat's ass who the Dolphins start at quarterback, whether they are going to stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick, whether they're going to go back to Josh Rosen at some point. They're a terrible team on every single front of the ball, whether that's defense, whether that's offense, whether that's special teams. This is just a terrible, terrible team. I hope that they don't get rid of Brian Flores because I don't feel like it's all on him this season. I'm hoping they at least give him a couple more seasons. I don't know, because the way this team is looking right now, the whole damn thing is a dumpster fire, and I kind of expect them maybe to cut their losses. We'll see. I want to see something happen right now while there's, a trade deadline going along. I want to see something happen with Kenyon Drake. Hopefully that'll come down the pipeline if they're not going to play him, which they haven't been doing. They're headed to Pittsburgh. Steelers have a good defense. Not a great one, but they have a good defense. It doesn't matter who they have at running back. I expect James Conner, if he is back, to play well. I expect them to look pretty good on offense, but that defense is really what will just send it over the top because, like I said, it doesn't matter who they have at quarterback. I expect picks to be thrown. I don't care who's back there. Not going to be an interesting game. I personally don't plan on turning it on. I'm giving this one to the Steelers. They're at home, and don't have good expectation this game, and I really feel like if it's Mason Rudolph, well, it's obviously going to be Mason Rudolph, I hope. We'll see what happens if he comes back this week, and if he does, then I expect him to play well, and he'll get the win.
Yeah, when it comes to Brian Flores, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that they told him before they hired him, listen, this is a rebuild. We don't expect to be good this year. We don't expect to be good next year, so you don't have to worry about that. We just want you to be good in the years to come. The same thing, obviously, I'm from the Philadelphia area. They did the same thing in Philadelphia with Brett Brown when they hired him from the San Antonio Spurs for the 76ers. They told him, listen, we're tanking this year. We're tanking next year. We expect to be bad for 3 years. So he knew that ahead of time. They stuck with him through those three years, and now in the past 2 years, he's gotten them to the 3 seed in the playoffs. I think they're going to do the same thing with Brian Flores in Miami. They're going to let him go through these next 2 or 3 years knowing that they're going to suck, and then after that, see what they have in him over the next couple years.
I'm really hoping that that's what they do because there's so much potential with Flores and there's so much potential with the Dolphins. Listen, the Dolphins have been one of those teams that for the umpteenth years have been stuck at that 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, and never better than that. They always just, in some cases, they get to 10-6, but just miss the playoffs. They want to finally get to where they can be competitive and win that division, or at least compete for that division against the Patriots. And they haven't been that in forever. And so stick with Brian Flores, really try and turn that team around. Don't just one and done him like I've seen other teams do. And I really feel like in like you said, 3-4 years, this team could definitely be where they used to be and be competitive in that division and really take it to the Patriots, which they haven't done in, I want to say, a decade. So we'll see what happens there. Well, that's all our matchups. Dominic, give me your survivor pool pick for the week.
Well, if you like, a lot of people don't like taking Thursday night games, so if you don't mind taking Thursday night games, you can take Minnesota. You can take Pittsburgh if you want to take a Monday night game as well. Obviously, those two teams, you can always pick against them. If you haven't used the Patriots, you can use them. And I know it's a long shot and it's going to be tough to hit. Well, not tough to hit, but if you want something closer, I think the Packers are a good play this week as well against the Chiefs.
You always pick ones that I'm going to pick. I'm definitely taking the Packers this week. And if you want another good one, I'm going to go with the Saints facing Arizona. I know that seems like a captain obvious one, but I just feel like, you can't go wrong whenever you pick the Saints right now, especially with the way that they're playing on defense more than anything. So Packers and Saints are my ones for me. And last up, Dominic, give me your start and sit for week 8.
If you want to start somebody, I think that obviously we know the 49ers have a good run defense, but their pass defense is not as good. I know they have Richard Sherman there, but he's getting older. So if you want to start DJ Moore, I think he should be a really good play this week. I would sit anybody, and I know everybody loves him and he's, everybody's boy right now, but I would sit Terry McLaurin this week. I just think he's going to have a tough matchup this week against Minnesota. Next week he goes against the Bills. Both of these games are going to be very tough matchups, and I would not want to start him. And another one, if you want to start them, we know the Chiefs defense is bad, especially their run defense. So Aaron Jones should have a very good game as well, as long as he doesn't get snake bitten by Jamal Williams.
Ooh, good one. Well, I like those, and I definitely need to work on my squad now. Get my right players in for the week. Well, that's all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all again for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts at SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my work right now at FantasyHotRead.com, as well as Rotoballer.com and Razzball.com.
That's all the time we have. Thank you again for listening. See you guys back here next week.